Today we hear a story from Luke about people complaining, as if we need the Bible to convince us that there's a lot of grumbling and complaining going on around us. In the story, it's complaining about tax collectors and sinners. But today, there's complaining at home about work, and at work about home. We complain about bosses, traffic, parents, children, teachers, coworkers, classmates, spouses, the roads, other drivers, politicians, the government, baby boomers, millennials, the team, the coach, the offense, the defense, that kicker last night. You know, we could go on like this for 30 minutes and just all go home. And then we could all heave a sigh of relief that we never, ever complain about the church. But if we did, it might go something like this. You know, we would be a bigger, better flock if all of those lost sheep out there would just get their act together and come find us. Or maybe this. This flock would be such a more pure, more faithful, more pleasant flock if those sheep would just get lost. I suppose the complaint I most often hear is that the church needs more volunteers. We ask, why aren't there more people helping out? But that is a matter that comes up in a congregation of any size and any shape. In other words, how we feel has nothing to do with the number of volunteers or the size of the congregation. Instead, we feel too small when we are constrained by our own or others' unmet expectations. We feel too small when we are hemmed in by ourselves and by our own complaining. So, how does Jesus respond to all of those complainers in Luke's gospel? Does he join them? No, he does not. Does Jesus turn around to his disciples and start complaining about the complainers? He doesn't do that either. Instead, Jesus tells two stories about two extravagant celebrations. Responding to complaints, Jesus tells stories of joy. The ironic thing is that we love these stories because we imagine ourselves on the receiving end of them. I listen to the parable of the lost sheep and think, that's me. I'm the poor lost sheep, draped across my Redeemer's shoulders, so full of gratitude and relief that I vow to never wander away from the flock again. I am that silver coin in some dark corner until some good woman who will not give up finds me as she sweeps and brings me into the light. But you know, I'm reluctant to see myself as anything other than the lost sheep or the lost coin in the story. And I imagine I'm not alone in this, because we all like to see ourselves as the lost sheep or the lost coin, even when we righteous church-going folk are complaining like the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. So my question for you today is, can you see yourself in any other role in these parables? Because Jesus, when he tells these stories, doesn't intend for them to be stories of lost sheep and coins, but rather parables about good shepherds and diligent sweepers. He says, which of you having 100 sheep? Jesus isn't inviting his listeners to imagine themselves as sheep, but to imagine themselves as shepherds leading a carefully tended flock to find the one that has gone astray. So if you're willing to see yourself not just as a lost sheep, but also as a shepherd, well, then the story begins to sound a little different. The point isn't so much about becoming righteous, but about seeking, finding, and rejoicing. The invitation is not simply about being rescued by Jesus over and over again, but about joining him in rounding up God's herd and recovering God's treasure. It's about questioning the idea that there are certain conditions that the lost must meet before they are able to be found, or that there are certain qualities that they must exhibit before we will go and seek them out. It's about going from complainers to proclaimers of what God is doing, and in the process, discovering the joy in the finding. Stan Ross knows this joy well. A couple years ago, he was at his house in Newport Beach, California, when he got a call from Rohit Chandler Narula. Rohit was proposing to his girlfriend, Jasleen, on the bridge of a canal in Los Angeles when he pulled out that engagement ring and felt it slip through his fingers. He heard 3 metallic clinks as the ring hit the wooden slats of the bridge before a momentary silence and then a little bloop. One of his friends who had come along to play the guitar and to record all of this on video hopped into the cold water and he went searching for the ring, but he had no luck finding it. The canal there was over 4 feet deep and you couldn't see to the bottom. So in his desperation, Rohit searched the internet and finally found someone who could help. Stan Ross. Stan is a 75-year-old retiree who is part of a nationwide network known as the Ring Finders. They all go around with metal detectors all around the country and find lost valuables. And when he got this call, he jumped into his car, drove over an hour down to LA, and spent 3 hours that Friday evening searching in the canal for the ring. He didn't find it. So the next day, without Rohit's knowledge, Stan returned to the canals and spent another 5 hours looking. He still didn't find it. On Sunday, he returned one more time. And this time he found it, and an hour later he was handing the ring back to a delighted Rohit who insisted on giving Stan a few $100s for his help. It's awesome. It's addictive, Stan said of finding rings for people, something he's done now over 225 times. One of those rings cost over $50,000, and he could have kept it, but he gave it back. Stan said, "They don't know where to turn, these people. A lot of time they tell me that I'm their last hope." Today, Jesus encourages us to be good shepherds and diligent sweepers, to be the ones who bring hope to the despairing, to be the ones proclaiming what God has done to seek out and save the lost. And that includes all of us, by the way. And then to rejoice with each other at what God is doing in all of our lives. Because the good news is that we have a God who finds us where we are. Jesus doesn't rest until we are resting in God's mercy. And God's mercy is what releases our complaints before Jesus lifts us on his shoulders and carries us to the best welcome home party that we've ever seen. Amen.